Have you found yourself sitting quietly one day, holding a warm drink and asking, when did everything begin to shift? Not just the world or your body, but your relationships, especially the ones you poured your heart into for decades. You raised your kids, taught them to tie their shoes, cheered at their games, maybe even bailed them out of some messes in early adulthood. And yet, now you feel like something's off, like there's a wall slowly going up brick by brick. You can't quite explain it, but you feel it. In your bones, in the silence, in the short replies, or worse, in the sweet words that sound kind, but carry a cold shadow behind them. It's hard, isn't it? We all want to believe that family is forever, that love is unconditional, and that the children we raised would never turn against us. Not in big, explosive ways, but sometimes in quiet betrayals. Emotional distance, financial manipulation, cutting you off while smiling to your face. That's why we're here today, to talk heart to heart about something that's uncomfortable but necessary. The subtle words your kids might say before they betray your trust. It's not about turning you bitter or making you suspicious of every conversation. It's about awareness, it's about clarity, and it's about protecting your peace in these later sacred years of your life. Let's begin with something that often sounds loving, but hides something deeper. Have you ever heard your child say, "I just want what's best for you"? That one sentence can disarm even the strongest parent. It sounds kind, protective, noble even, and sometimes it is, but sometimes it's a setup. Because what follows that phrase is often a plan that benefits them, not you. I just want what's best for you, so maybe it's time to downsize and move into assisted living. I just want what's best for you, so why don't you add me to your bank account to make things easier? I just want what's best for you, so maybe we should sell the house before it gets to be too much. You hear it, and your heart opens. You start to question yourself. Maybe you are being stubborn. Maybe you do need help. But pause, just for a moment. Ask yourself, who really benefits from this decision? Is it a mutual solution, or is it mostly convenient for them? That phrase, "I just want what's best for you," can be a gateway to control. It creates an illusion of care while softening your resistance. And the hardest part? Sometimes your child believes they mean well, even as they slowly begin making decisions that leave you with less freedom, less money, less say. That's not care, that's management. You've spent decades taking care of others. Now, you deserve care that respects your mind, your history, your right to choose. So the next time you hear those words, take a breath and listen not just to the tone, but to the pattern. Are they offering something to help you, or are they quietly taking the wheel without your full consent? Now let's talk about another common phrase. You don't need to worry about that. Seems innocent, right? It's often said with a smile, a hand wave, a pat on the shoulder. But too often, it becomes a way to keep you in the dark. Especially when it comes to things like finances, legal documents, medical decisions, or even family plans you somehow weren't included in. You might ask a question. What happened with the house insurance? Or, how are the grandkids doing with school? And they respond with, you don't need to worry about that. Just like that, the conversation ends. You're put in the passenger seat, whether you asked to be there or not. That phrase becomes a fence. One plank at a time, it separates you from the very life you helped build. The worst part? Sometimes it's so subtle you don't notice the distance until it's miles long. Let me be clear, it's okay to want less responsibility. You've earned the right to step back from stress. But there's a difference between choosing peace and being pushed out. The moment someone starts deciding what you get to worry about, they've also started deciding what you're allowed to know. That's not love. That's a quiet power play. And sometimes the reason they don't want you to worry is because they know you'd ask questions. Because deep down, they know you'd see something they'd rather keep hidden. It might be about money. It might be about their marriage. It might be about something they've done with your property or behind your back. So they give you that sweet little phrase, "Don't worry about it," and move on, hoping you'll let it go. But you've lived too long and seen too much to be pacified like a child. You know when something isn't sitting right. You feel it. And if you've been hearing that phrase more and more lately, maybe it's time to lean in instead of leaning back. Let's move into something even more subtle, something that doesn't sound like a warning sign at all. You're just too sensitive. That one hurts, doesn't it? Because it comes right after you finally speak up. You question their tone or express that something made you uncomfortable. You're not yelling, you're not accusing, you're just trying to be heard, and they cut you down with 5 little words that make you feel small. You're just too sensitive. Suddenly, your feelings don't matter. Your concerns are brushed aside. You're painted as fragile, irrational, even dramatic. It's a classic tactic, not always intentional, but deeply harmful. Because once they can label you as overly emotional, they don't have to listen anymore. They don't have to reflect. They don't have to take responsibility. And here's where it becomes betrayal. When your child uses that phrase to avoid being honest with you, to keep you quiet, to manipulate the narrative, over time, you might even begin to doubt your own memory, your instincts, your voice. You start thinking, maybe I am overreacting. But you're not. You're reacting to a shift in the relationship. A shift you didn't ask for. And sometimes the betrayal doesn't come with loud arguments or slammed doors. Sometimes it comes wrapped in politeness, in condescension, in silence. You have every right to speak up when something doesn't feel right. You have every right to ask questions, to feel hurt, to expect respect. You didn't lose those rights the moment you turned 60 or 70 or 80. And anyone who tells you otherwise, especially your own children, is not protecting you. They're protecting themselves from accountability. So what can you do? Start by trusting your instincts. If a conversation leaves you feeling confused, dismissed, or manipulated, that's not your imagination. That's your inner wisdom sounding an alarm. And that wisdom, that clarity, is something no one can take from you unless you let them. Sometimes the words that wound us the most don't come from strangers. They come from the voices we once taught to speak, from the little hands we held crossing the street. And as the years pass, the betrayal doesn't always arrive with dramatic confrontation. Sometimes it slips in quietly, dressed as concern or disguised as practicality. Let's keep going with another phrase that might seem simple at first but carries a heavy implication. We're just trying to help. Now, help is a beautiful thing when it's invited, when it respects your voice, your pace, your dignity. But help becomes something else entirely when it's used as a cover for control. Because when your kids say, "We're just trying to help," what they sometimes really mean is, "We've already made a decision and we're presenting it as if it's for your own good." Maybe they're taking over your bills without your permission. Maybe they show up with paperwork, asking you to sign things you don't fully understand. Maybe they tell you they've spoken to a lawyer or an advisor, without asking if that's what you want. And if you question it, if you ask for more time or clarity, suddenly you're difficult. Suddenly you're ungrateful. They say, "We're just trying to help," as if your discomfort is the problem, not their overstep. Now, is all help bad? Of course not. There are kids out there who genuinely want to support their aging parents in a healthy, respectful way. But here's the key. Real help listens. Real help waits. Real help doesn't push you aside. It invites you in. If you've been feeling like your opinion is slowly being replaced with their decisions, it's time to ask a hard but necessary question. Is this really help, or is it control with a smile? You deserve to have a say in your own life. You've lived long enough to know what's best for you. And if someone truly wants to help, they'll start by honoring your voice, not silencing it under the blanket of good intentions. Now let's talk about another phrase that's deceptively dangerous. You wouldn't understand. Oh, that one stings, doesn't it? It usually shows up when you ask about something they'd rather not explain. Maybe you asked about some money that went missing, or a choice they made without telling you. Maybe you offered advice on something they're struggling with. And instead of a conversation, you get brushed off with, "You wouldn't understand." It's a way of putting you on the outside, of suggesting that your experience, your insight, your perspective, none of it is relevant anymore. And that hurts, not just because it's dismissive, but because it's untrue. You've seen the world shift more times than they've changed jobs. You've been through wars, recessions, births, deaths, divorces, marriages. You do understand. In fact, you might understand better than they do, but that phrase, "you wouldn't understand," isn't really about understanding. It's about shutting you down. It's about hiding something they don't want to share. And sometimes it's about setting the stage for decisions that affect you, made without you. Maybe it's about your house, your health, your will, your savings. Maybe they're avoiding hard conversations because they know what they're doing won't sit right with you. So instead of being honest, they clip the conversation short and walk away. But silence doesn't equal peace, and dismissal doesn't protect you. It isolates you. The more you hear "you wouldn't understand," the more distance grows. And over time, that distance can become betrayal. When decisions are made in secret, when trust is broken in the name of protecting you from stress, you have a right to be informed. You have a right to speak up. You don't need to understand every new app or financial tool, but you absolutely deserve transparency when your name, your money, or your legacy is involved. Now let's take a breath here. I know this conversation is not easy. It touches places in your heart that may feel sore, maybe even broken. Maybe you're watching this and remembering the moment your child said one of these things to you. Maybe you've brushed it off for years, telling yourself it's nothing, that you're just overthinking, that they didn't mean it that way. But what if you're not overthinking? What if your wisdom, the quiet knowing that's lived in your gut all these years, isn't paranoia, but protection? What if it's time to finally listen to that voice inside that says, "This doesn't feel right"? There is power in naming things, in recognizing patterns, in giving yourself permission to see the full picture, even when it's painful. Because once you name it, you're no longer lost in confusion. You're standing in truth. And truth, no matter how uncomfortable, will always set you free. You deserve honesty. You deserve love. That doesn't manipulate. You deserve help that uplifts, not controls. And you deserve to be surrounded by people who speak to you with respect, not dismissal. And if you're realizing now that one or more of these phrases have been said to you, maybe often, it's not too late to set new boundaries, to ask new questions, to reclaim the seat at the table that you never should have been asked, to give up. It's a strange thing, isn't it? You spend half your life teaching your kids how to speak, and then one day, their words start making you feel small. At first, you think maybe you misunderstood, maybe you're being sensitive, maybe they're just stressed. But over time, the language they use begins to shape the way you feel about yourself. And that's how the quiet kind of betrayal begins. Not with a loud betrayal of trust, but with little drops of disrespect that erode your confidence over time. Let's talk about one more phrase, one that sounds almost sweet, almost kind, but leaves you unsettled. "I just don't want you to be alone." Now, on the surface, it sounds loving. It sounds like they care. And maybe they do. But sometimes, this phrase comes right before they introduce a plan that serves their life more than yours. Like moving you out of your home into a space that's more convenient for them, not necessarily better for you, or urging you to live with them so they can keep an eye on you, when in reality, you end up isolated in their home, away from your routines, your friends, and your independence. "I just don't want you to be alone," is sometimes the velvet glove over a steel hand. Because who would argue with that sentiment? No one wants to be alone. But the truth is, there's a difference between being alone and being lonely. Being alone can be peaceful. It can be empowering. It can be a time of deep reflection, of doing things on your terms, at your pace. But when your child uses this phrase as a prelude to taking control of your daily life, your money, your schedule, your space, it's worth looking a little closer. Are they actually worried about your well-being? Or are they trying to make their life easier by making decisions for you? You are not a burden. You are not a project. You are not a fragile figure to be handled with gloves and spoken over like a piece of furniture in the room. You are a whole human being with wisdom, memories, preferences, and most of all, rights. And if you ever feel that the decisions being made for you are making you feel invisible, unheard, or boxed in, then it's time to have a real conversation, a firm one, a clear one. Because the truth is, betrayal doesn't always look like betrayal. Sometimes it shows up wearing a smile and calling itself help. But deep inside, your soul knows when something's not right. That feeling in your chest, that little twist in your gut, it's there for a reason. Listen to it. Let me say something directly to you now, from one person to another. You are not too old to speak up. You are not too late to change the dynamic. And you are not imagining things. You've given so much to your family. You've earned the right to be respected in your later years. Not just remembered fondly, not just tolerated, but fully respected. And that means your voice should still matter. Your choices should still be honored. Your space should still be your own. If you've heard any of these phrases from your children lately, and if something in your heart has been whispering that something's not quite right, don't ignore that voice anymore. That voice is your inner compass, and it's trying to protect you. You can love your children deeply and still set boundaries. You can want connection and still say no. You can be kind without allowing yourself to be managed. And here's something else. I want you to know, you are not alone in this. So many parents, especially those in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, carry this burden quietly. They feel ashamed for feeling hurt by their own kids. They second-guess themselves. They isolate. But you don't have to. You can start having honest conversations. You can talk to a friend, a counselor, a trusted advisor. You can speak to your children directly, with love, but also with strength. Because your voice still matters. And sometimes it takes one brave sentence to shift the entire balance of power back where it belongs. So what does all this come down to? Awareness, boundaries, and the deep, powerful understanding that your later years are not a time of fading. They are a time of refinement, a time to release what no longer serves you, a time to stand calmly in your wisdom and protect the peace you've earned. You are not a victim. You are not naive. You are someone who chose to love fully, and now you're choosing to love yourself fully too. And if no one has told you this recently, let me be the one to say it. I'm proud of you. For questioning, for noticing, for choosing truth over comfort. That takes strength, not just of body, but of spirit. Now, if this video spoke to you, if you found a bit of yourself in these words, take a moment to leave a comment and share your thoughts. Someone else might need to hear your story, to feel less alone. And if you want more honest, heartfelt conversations like this one, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to our channel, Strong Elderly Life. We're here for you every step of the way. Because no matter what anyone else says, your life is not over. It's opening into a new season of strength, clarity, and peace. And that, my friend, is something no one can take from you. Here's to living your best life, on your own terms, at any age,